Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. Hey, Ashley King down there in Memphis, Tennessee, and Robert Williams. How you doing, sweetie? Zenobia, CLS from LA. Oh, we're going to be up there soon. All right, CLS. So, you know what? I want you all to like and subscribe, and please share the show with somebody, just one person at least. Okay? Ashley, Robert, Zenobia, CLS. You know, I'm about to have cataract surgery, everybody, so you don't have to get up on the screen so I can see you. Andre, how you doing, sweetie? Everybody. Is that Carol Soskin, my sister from another mister? Love you, sweetie. Love you, sweetie. In the Hanukkah season, Ariel, she sent me these Christmas cards. She was like, I got to send you cards. I love my Carol. She's such a sweetie. When I come out to LA, I'm going to see her in the hills of Beverly, my girl. But I'm sending everybody so much love today. And, you know, we're getting ready for the Democratic National Convention, but we are also first getting ready for the Rainbow Push Convention. It's going to be an exciting convention. The Nation magazine will be honoring Reverend. So you're going to have Congressman Ro Khanna, you're going to have Senator Bernie Sanders, you're going to have former state Senator Nina Turner, you're going to have John Nichols, Ariel Gold, Dr. James Zogby, Attorney Daryl Jones, Attorney Barbara Arwine. It's going to be something really fabulous. Reverend William Barber, Reverend Al Sharpton. They're all going to be part of the convention. And this convention, the 15th through the 18th, is going to lead into the Democratic Convention. We're not an adjunct to the Democratic Party. Let us be very clear. But everybody's gathering in Chicago. People are trying to get permits to march. They're not being allowed to do that, many of them. And there's just a lot that's going to be going on. And what we want you to do is make the Rainbow Push headquarters, also known as Dr. King's Workshop, as your home, so that you can meet Ariel, so that you can meet Attorney Daryl Jones, so we can talk about voting and voter suppression, so that we can talk about these coalitions that we need to form, Ariel, because we are all under attack. And I think we need to understand we're under attack by the same forces. And so, you know, we've got a lot of work to do. And that's why we are going to be talking about education. We're going to be talking about Gaza. We're going to be talking about Haiti and Yemen. We're going to be talking about all of these things, where your money is going, everybody, and where it's not going. It's going to a lot of places, every place but you and where you need the money. Everybody, please like and share, like and share. Please thumbs up, everybody. Like. Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia. Ashley. Everybody like. And let's talk in the next hour, Ariel, we're going to do something that's interesting, something that we've been talking about, voting down ballot. And Attorney Daryl Jones is going to be joining Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, because many of us do not understand how important voting down ballot is. The power really is in the states. That's how the country was constructed. There's this tension that's existed between the federal government and state governments. And if you do not have control of your state government, anything they do in Washington can be subverted. It happens all the time. And we need to talk about that. Hey, Miss Wanda down there in North Carolina, please like and share, everybody, please, so you can help us get our algorithms up. Like and share. We're streaming on X. At Santita J, that is my handle, at Santita J, and the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. But everybody, please, if you can, go on to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. So let's get right to it. In this first hour, we're talking about the squad. And we're talking about all of this money that has been poured into these campaigns to take them out. Cori Bush has been taken out. Jamal Bowman's being taken out. Ilhan Omar's being targeted. And quite frankly, if you have a Black progressive congressman near you, they're being taken out too, or someone who has been supportive of Palestinian rights and Israeli security. Come on, you can't have one without the other. But they have been targeted. And it's very interesting to me that it has been announced that AIPAC pulled together a $100 million fund. But I've not heard the Democrats say, we have pulled together $100 million. They have access to it. 150 million, 200 million. We have a razor thin majority in the House of Representatives, and yet our people are being taken out. And these funds are also going to help Republicans get in. Think about that, everybody. Why? What is the response that the Democrats have? But let's look at what's happening with Ilhan Omar. And you know she was up for it. There's a group called, according to this Intercept report, Zionist for Don Samuels. Now, Don Samuels is her opposition. And of course, it means a whole lot to everybody here in Minneapolis because this is where she's from, right? She represents you. And so the story goes like this. Members of a WhatsApp group founded by the wealthy pro-Israel donors coordinated to infuse last-minute cash into Don Samuel's primary race against Representative Ilhan Omar. Well, they are in the mix, everybody. The members of the group, which has included a consultant who at the time was working for Samuel's campaign, as well as far-flung political donors from New York, from Puerto Rico, from everywhere. Well, they have been pulling together money, and they're not mentioning AIPAC. And they're not mentioning Israel like they did in Cori Bush's campaign. They're attacking their records. They said Cori Bush was ineffective and wasn't showing up at Congress. The period that they targeted was a period in which she had COVID. Did you want her to go? Well, maybe you want her to be like Rand Paul. Remember when he had COVID and he showed up to work? I don't know how you all want that to work, but there's a whole lot going on here. There's a whole lot going on because they're coming up under a whole lot of different names and they're taking out progressive congresspersons. And we're not just looking at votes on Israel, we're looking at votes on poverty. We're looking at votes on funding public education. We're looking at votes on health care. We're looking at a whole range of issues that help the average American. And yet they are systematically being taken, they're being targeted, they're being taken out. It is working. But it works when you work it too. So let's talk about this with Attorney Daryl Jones from the Transformative Justice Coalition. And let's start with you, Ariel Gold, Fellowship of Reconciliation Executive Director. This is something that our beloved friend and mentor, Dr. James Zogby, he sounded the alarm almost a year ago, right? And he was saying, these people are going to come after the squad. They're going to come after the progressives. And we need to be, just after October 7th, he said, we need to be diligent about it. And I think we were so caught up in the moment, Ariel, of trying, fighting for a ceasefire initially because we saw this carnage. And we said, we've got to stop it. And then we're also trying to stop the carnage in Ukraine. And we're fighting for people to be able to get through the border. I mean, we can't continue. Do you want to put Haitians at Guantanamo base or push them back into the water? Because that's the plan. So we've had a lot of crises really at one time, but this, Ariel, systematically, even after this $100 million fund from AIPAC has been announced and is kind of splintered off because a lot of different people have a lot of different, funds with different names. At this time, at least it's working. Talk to us, Ariel.
Yeah, well, both these losses, Bowman and Cori Bush, are losses not just for the Palestine rights movement, but for all of us, for the progressive movement at large. Cori Bush came out of the Black Lives Matter movement, and we're looking at how much it costs to get somebody out of Congress. The good news here is that 10 years ago, AIPAC didn't need to spend barely a dime to take somebody out of Congress. So we have made enormous headway, but I think we have to look at what they're doing to smear these members of Congress. And first of all, most of their ads don't mention Palestine. They just go after the member of Congress. And they're also drawing this false divide between domestic and foreign policies, between saying that what's happening locally has nothing to do, is being that there's a distraction from what's happening locally by paying attention to what's happening across the world in Palestine. And there's absolutely not. When we look at we look at how our tax dollars are spent, and when we look at the militarization of the police here in the US. We were just at the anniversary of the killing of Michael Brown.
Mhm.
And what we saw in Ferguson, where people from the ground in Palestine were tweeting to Ferguson how to deal with tear gas and how to deal with these militarized police. So we have to recognize that these issues are actually very, very intertwined. And so when we are protecting our champions for Palestine, they are most likely our champions here for domestic policy as well. And let's not forget, we have Ilhan Omar's coming up on Tuesday.
It's well, what do you make of this? Well, it's a coordinated effort, and you said it's good news, the good news. And I mean, in its own way, I think you're right. Because when we see what happened with Josh Shapiro and the ticket, there was there was the progressive said no for these sets of reasons. And it wasn't just that the Harris Walz campaign listened, or that Kamala Harris at that time listened. Um, she can count. Uncommitted is very real.
Mm-hmm.
And these are people who organized in Michigan in 21 days, and they got 101,000 votes. If they had, imagine if they'd had more time. The sentiment out there is very, very real. So, I mean, you talk to me. I mean, what does it mean? Because we see they're also putting up against these candidates, Black people, you know, who are known entities in the Black community. Wesley Bell, who ran against Cori Bush, had just made history. I think he was the first Black prosecutor in St. Louis, and he had promised her. And there's audio of him promising, "I'm not going to run against you," because he was running for the U.S. Senate. And then, lo and behold, the same thing that happened to Hill Harper in Michigan, because Hill Harper was the famed actor, was offered $20 million to abandon his race against his race for the Senate to run against Rashida Tlaib. $20 million. Whoa. I mean, Ariel, we now see, I guess we see how much these seats cost, but why are these seats so valuable?
Well, we also see what these members of Congress have been able to do, and there have been dramatic shifts taking place in Congress over the past, say, decade. We didn't have champions for Palestinian rights in Congress, or if we did, we saw them much more easily taken out.
Mhm.
Look at what happened to Keith Ellison. Absolutely. And, this gets at this larger issue of money in politics and allowing dark money into our elections. And, what are our elections about? Are they about what's happening, or are they about how much is spent? And way too frequently these days, they are about how much is spent.
So, Daryl Jones, as you're out here registering people to vote, talking about the protection of the vote. And first of all, many of our people, and I'm not just saying Black people, Americans, I think, Ariel, are just exhausted. And so you had a lot of people, they're not apathetic. They think that the system has betrayed them. So some people are just saying, look, I'm staying home. I even heard my own grandmother despairing of the system before she died 7 years ago. I mean, and this is someone who grew up not able to vote. She was about 92, 93, 92 when she passed. And she saw give Bailey our love. She saw the corruption in the system, and Ariel and Daryl, it broke her heart. She said, I can't believe we fought for this. She said, this is not, because, she said, my grandmother was, there's one way, the right way. If something's unbelievable, don't believe it. You know how old folks with their sayings, but you know they've seen the world, and you know, and they say, you know, wait, there's a lot that's not right here, not right. So I mean, what do you make of this? Because now we've got Don Samuels who's attacking her on police. I mean, they're finding all these other issues to attack them on, and but they've got this money behind them that it's really because of her stance that they're calling her an anti-Semite, which is untrue.
And,
And,
you know,
and they're voting. I mean, and this is an open primary, right? Uh, so that means, and what is an open primary?
an open primary means that you can vote for either party, any candidate. You're not limited to your party in terms of who you can vote for. So it's an open primary, so everyone can vote for whoever they want. You're not limited to the party affiliation for whom you can vote.
So,
But
Daryl, let me ask you this before you continue. Would that make her and other Democrats or other candidates more vulnerable?
it very possibly could, because with the open primary, if you're pulling away, uh, if you're a Democrat, let's say, and you're pulling away some of the supporters for that Democrat, and they're going to the Republican, they end up falling down and losing voters. So that makes, Ilhan Omar and other Democrats that need that support more vulnerable, because they won't have those supporters that are there. They're going someplace else. And so, with ads like they're doing in Minnesota, what it ends up having the impact is that it pulls away from Omar in this situation and will go to someone else. In this case, the guy that's running against her actually is a Republican. Don Samuels is a Republican. And so they're pulling away the Democratic votes to go over to the Republican candidate, Samuels, and just trying to milk them out that way. And that was impacting Congresswoman Omar. But what really is interesting as well, Santita, is one of the other points that you were just raising. And that is that, are people becoming tired of it? Are they saying that the system, this is too much? Even when I'm trying to vote, there are issues that are being raised. The redistricting that's out there, so that I end up not being able to elect the person that I want to elect. My vote is being watered down. And so, I think one of the things that Ariel was lifting up was that, what this really is a result of is the influence, the financial influence of what is happening in elections, rather than the people's influence and the people's vote, and just the straight up democratic principle of majority wins. But people get tired of it because they think that I'm voting, I'm doing my part. I'm supposed to go and support my candidate. That's what I'm doing. And so as they're doing that, what they're beginning to realize, in some sense, is that the more money that's being poured on, the more influence those with the money are having. Not only is that with Congress, let's be clear, that's also with the Supreme Court. What we're seeing is that folks are buying the influence. And that's what voters are getting fed up with, is that they feel as though their worth is being smaller or is being lowered because of the people with money that are really making the determinations of what's happening. So does my vote really matter? And so, one of the things that I think we've got to be certain that we lift up with Congresswoman Omar in this situation is that, your vote does matter. And if we're able to certainly show that you have those that with outside influence, which is what this WhatsApp group, the Zionists for Don Samuels is doing. What they're trying to do is they're trying to influence it without saying that our issue really is just Israel. We don't care what the candidate stands for on any other platform. We don't care about any of that. Their sole focus is, what are you against Israel? Are you doing anything that would bother Israel at all? If you are, we are against you. We don't care what party you're a part of. We're against you. We don't care which way Congress flows with regards to who's in the majority, so long as they're supportive of our issue. And that's what I think is some of the danger that's here, is that the voters need to be aware of where the money is coming from, what the issues are, and what are the controls that the folks that are giving the money are trying to put in place. We know that in New York, Richie Torres, right,
Yeah.
is one of the folks that's there. Yeah, he is really controlled when it comes to that issue by AIPAC and those that are supporters. He's one of the cheerleaders. Whatever they want to have in place, he's going to be up there pushing for that issue. And now, for the Democrats, that works, somewhat well, because with regards to who controls the committees, because who controls the committees controls the agenda, right? So for Torres and the Democrats, that works somewhat well for them because it allows them to remain control of what issues make it to the agenda. In the case here, we're looking at this example with Congresswoman Omar. If the Republican becomes the nominee, Don Samuels becomes the nominee and wins the seat, then you begin to lower the margin of availability of control of the House of Representatives that's in place. Who controls the House of Representatives controls the agenda. He who controls the agenda determines what issues goes before the American people, what policies the U.S. government puts in place. So that's a large part of the danger of watching. We got to watch carefully what happens with Congresswoman Omar, because they're one issue focused. One issue focused. They don't care about the rest of it. So that's why we've got to be very, very careful. That's what happened to Congresswoman Bush. That's what happened to Jamal Bowman. Is that one issue people of purpose were pushing for their issue regardless of anything else. So those are the concerns. And as you've indicated, they don't tell you that our one issue is anything that favors the state of Israel in the Gaza experience or anything else. They're not telling you that's their issue. They're fine whatever the soft parts are for the candidates that are there. How can we attack? Whatever it takes to get our prominent issue, our dominant issue, that's where we're going to go. We don't need to tell you what our dominant issue is. We need the voters to go out and vote against these people so that our issue can prevail. And that's what we're seeing.
Well, and I think that was President John Kennedy's point, Ariel and Daryl. When he wanted them, and AIPAC had a different name during Kennedy's time and Eisenhower's time. And they both pushed back against that. They said, your influence is getting to be, it's getting problematic. He wanted them to register as foreign agents. He said, you can do what you do, but don't come here as an American organization because you're not advocating for America. And I think that in a time, Ariel and Daryl, when we're watching increased nationalism, and nationalism is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's when it's tied to, well, I think whenever you tie anything to racism, that's when it gets bad. But if you have pride in your country and you want your country to go forward, I think that's a good thing. But you got to be careful because all these isms can cross the line. Just and
that's patriotism. That's like fighting for your team at the Olympics. Nationalism is a different flavor. Nationalism by nature is exclusionary.
Yeah. A point well taken. That having been said, that's been taken off the table. And that is what to me is very, very dangerous right now. Everybody like and share the show, thumbs up. Let's get our algorithm up. Everybody like Monica, because Monica makes the point, and there's several others I want to make about the questions that I have for you. She talks about the low voter turnout.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, first you, Ariel, because had more people turned out, it had more of Cori Bush's people turned out, she could have pushed back. I mean, I keep trying to tell people when Reverend ran, and I know I keep referencing Reverend, but you know what? We can look back and see the genius of, well, first of all, he's a brilliant organizer, and that makes a big difference. And, because, and when he ran for president, he had already been organizing like 25 years. So I've talked to several people who've been on the campaign, even old Secret Service agents, and they said, working for Reverend was maddening because we had to change the rules after '84 because he had just done things we had never seen before. We'd land and we would not have a physical itinerary, but the itinerary would be in his head. And he would say, we're going to go to this church, this union hall. And well, Reverend, no one knows we're coming. He said, no, they'll let me in. And by the time I finished talking, we'll fill up that union hall. And that would happen. It wouldn't just happen. He had so much. And I was sharing with people, you all have to be organizing all the time, registering people to vote all the time. Reverend did not get 3.5 million, 7 million votes in the party. He brought them to the party. I mean, that's what people forget about. They miss that about Bernie. Bernie brought people to the party. You can say what you will about Trump. Trump brought people to the Republican Party. I mean, Donna Brazile was on television. She said, look, y'all missed the fact. She was on ABC with George Stephanopoulos. She said, you're missing, this is a movement, y'all. And if you keep missing this, take your personal feelings and animus and biases out of this and just step back and look at what we're looking at. Because and that's what I keep saying on the show, you all, if we understand what we're looking at, then you know how to fight it. Just because I don't. And another thing, let me just say this. Coming out of the church, everybody's very protective of their pastor. You know that, okay? When you talk bad about pastor, not the pastor, you are slandering everyone in that church. That was a mistake Hillary Clinton made when she talked about the deplorables. Mm-hmm. Anyone who might have been open to her, she shut the door. She didn't mean to. That was a mistake that Bill Clinton, in the zenith of his powers, he wouldn't have made, because he was always smiling, trying to bring you in. Yeah, I did kind of slip into that kind of dialect, because that's what he did, and it softened everything. And when you start going against people that way, you're shutting the door. You're shutting doors. And we can't afford that right now. Nobody, you can never afford it, but we really cannot. And so my question is, with this, how do you get people to turn out, Ariel? I mean, because we are in a real fight. I mean, we can't afford to lose a Cori Bush. And I'm hoping, Joe Lieberman used to drive me to distraction. But, when he lost his primary, he came back as an independent and won.
Well, we have to be on real issues that people care about. And you spoke about, Trump bringing people in, and you're right. And and Trump has taken the mantle. The right has taken the mantle of many issues that used to belong to the left. Anti-war. I mean, I remember for years, like, standing on street corners, how are we going to make anti-war, matter to people other than some old white folks from the Vietnam War? And here it is. It's an issue, and it's an issue on the right. And they managed to make that appeal, and they have managed to make that connection that we don't want to be fighting these foreign wars. Now, the part of the connection that's missed there is that Trump has no intention of stopping the foreign wars. But how do we make that? And that's one of the appeals, I would say, of the movement for Palestinian rights, which is bringing people in. The liberation of Palestine has come to represent the liberation of so many causes. It has come to be this anti-racist cause globally. And so how do we take our issues and how do we, have them appeal? And the same thing with the working class, right? With the white working class, that used to belong to the Democrats. Right? Democrats used to be the party of the white poor, the white working poor, and that has been ceded to the Republican Party. And I've been glad to see Kamala and Walz claiming those policies, which are Sanders policies, which Sanders has been championing about this kind of equity and, what do these policies mean? What does healthcare mean for us? We have to be able to talk to people and bring them in and talk about issues that really do matter.
I mean, and beyond, Dr. David Gibbs, the historian from the University of Arizona, who's part of, our Morning Star family, he said, what we're not doing, we've become elite. We cater to people who went to college, people in sororities and fraternities, people with advanced degrees, da, 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 da. And that's not where most Americans are. I mean, what is it? I thought I saw a CNN story. 39% of Americans are wondering how they're going to stretch their check to get to the next paycheck. People who make six-figure salaries are living from payday to Monday, and it's not that they are living way above their means. I mean, a starter home in America is deep into six figures now. I mean, who can afford that? So I mean, and you've got to answer those questions. And so and with these campaigns, these questions are not even on the menu. I think that's the thing that's so galling too, that the basic needs of Americans they're not even thinking about. And I'm worried about the whiplash on that. I mean, what can happen behind that, Ariel? I'm going to come back to you, Daryl, because people will then, I think, will unfairly condemn Israel, because everybody in Israel doesn't sign on to this, and certainly all American Jews and don't sign on to this. I'm wondering what the impact can be as you're watching these organizations take out Black candidates, right? I just don't want to see a schism opened
Well,
up.
interestingly, one of
Oh,
the
do you
things
think
if
I'm
we
going
look,
down the wrong path? Am I
no, no,
wrong?
no. But one of the things, if we look at Zionism as a movement, one of the things that we often miss is Zionism didn't begin with Jews. Zionism began with an evangelical white supremacist movement way, way before the Jewish movement for the state of Israel, and that's very much still what is fueling the state of Israel. If we really want to look at support for Israel, it is Christian Zionism outnumbers, well, Jews, period. And so if we look there, we can see these connections, right? We can see the racist policies. We can see the anti-immigration policies that are all the way across the board. And you're right. American Jews, public opinion of American Jews is changing rapidly. And we've even seen Israeli officials, they'll say we don't need the American Jews anymore and they're no use to us, but we have the evangelicals. And so that's a movement that is one of these dangerous, less seen forces.
Well, I mean, that's unbelievable. Regina Hill says, red or blue, stop the war. Stop killing babies and old people. Full stop. I hear you. Ashley King says, snobs will be snobs. Everybody, we need to, and, it was Monica who brought up, Monica Wells, thank you for bringing up the low voter turnout. Everybody like and share, like and share. Let's get these likes up, everybody. Like and share, like and share. Because I will say this, Trump did go to North Korea. He did. He did, and there was a story. I remember this news story. Come to think of it, when he was president, he called Jimmy Carter, and he said, "You know what? I've noticed America's falling behind, Mr. President. What is going on?" Because he was in a new space. He hadn't seen what he saw before, right? And President Carter is reported to have said, "Well, China is ahead of us. Number one, they are at war no place, and we're at war every place." They're investing in their internal infrastructure. They're building new airports. They're building roads, bridges. They are building universities. They're sending their kids to school all over the world. That's what they're doing. He said, and we're waging war, and it's bankrupting us. And I thought it was interesting that he reached out to Carter, who's probably about the most vilified ex-president. If you see the pictures, the last picture of these presidents when they were alive, I think George H.W. Bush was alive then. This was not even 10 years ago. You saw George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Clinton, Obama. They were all clustered up together, and Carter was off to the side. I guess he must have been clutching his Bible in his hand because he had something in his hand. Where he did teach Sunday school up until he couldn't anymore. And I said, "Wow, this is." I guess this is very telling. It's very, very telling. What about What about campaign finance reform? Would that help? I mean, not just campaign finance reform. I mean, once you get into office, limiting the monies that you can get. I mean, because I've had two brothers in the House of Representatives. And I think one of the things that has been such a source of frustration for them was that went in there, particularly when my brother Jesse was in office, because Rahm Emanuel was the enforcer who came to you to get your money for the DCCC. You remember that, Daryl Jones, Ariel Gold, and Rahm Emanuel is a piece of work. I mean, that's on record, and he prides himself on that. Really. I think his hand was caught somewhere, and then he chopped it lost part of his finger because he had something to do because he's a different kind of guy, very driven, and would tell you when you walked in, and this is 30 years ago, $200,000 you owe me. No, well, yeah, DCCC. And the thing is, people don't realize that if you don't pay that piper, you can't get on committees. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really, this money, Congressman Danny Davis from Chicago said, money is the mother's milk of politics. And it really ought not be, because it means we're all vulnerable. I mean, Daryl, the campaign finance reform, anybody? What would that do?
Well, one of the interesting things is, particularly with members of the House of Representatives, right? They're running for re-election every 2 years.
No, every year.
So, and that's what I was getting ready to say. So as a result of that, as soon as they're elected, they're running again for office. So every decision they make, every dollar that they need to get their message out, it's immediate. So they need access to capital so they can keep their message out, so they can continue to run, because it's a continual running thing. It's like every day they're running. So they're trying to figure out ways to finance their campaigns, to have things pushed forward. They're also trying to find ways to not take on issues that will, we call it take on water, right? Meaning that, they don't want to take a controversial issue that may cost them votes, because they know that they're always running for election every 2 years.
That includes what we're talking about right now, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the situation that they find themselves in. Now, one of the interesting things is that, with the need for money and always wanting money to be able to get your message out, you're going to be accepting money that you may not otherwise have accepted if you weren't put in a position. For instance, with Congresswoman Omar, if you have a really strong candidate that's running against you, that's going to be able to raise money, you're going to need money to match that money to get your message out. And so, you end up with situations, in Congresswoman Omar's situation, the gentleman that's running against her, when Don Samuels, when he's running for this position, one of the things we know is that he's receiving money from what we call the dark money, right? And that's coming from unknown sources that you don't have to say who the source of money is, entities and things like that, where you're receiving money. But one of the things we do know is that, the organizations that's supporting Samuels, one of their funders, I think it's Michael Sineski was the name I believe that I saw associated with it. It's one of the wealthy investors out of, I think he's probably in New York or something like that. But one of the things that he says is that, he's fine supporting a white nationalist because Nazis are better than Islamic terrorists. Okay, so think about that for a moment. If your issue, because this is the funder that's saying, our issue is a pro-Israel issue, and I'm willing to accept racism so long as it doesn't hurt my issue of being pro-Israel. This is, a lot of the influence of money, because of the need for the money into the campaign, that candidates are willing to say, okay, I need the 2 million or 800,000 or whatever that they're throwing out. So I'm willing to accept this. I'm going to buy on to what your ultimate goal is, and I'm going to support it. I'm going to be there. This is what's meant by, by really, I think, buying votes, buying candidates, that you're putting the money up there for these candidates, and you're expecting that the candidate will respond appropriately to the issue that's important to you. So that's what we see happening with Samuels now in Minnesota, is that the money that's coming in, they're not saying that our issue is being certain that you're anti-Palestine. They're saying that our issue is policing. Our issue is, we had a problem with, whatever it is that they're using to cover it up. What the campaign finance reform would do is say, well, this is the block of money that the government is giving every candidate to run once they meet a qualification. This is how much money you have. However you spend it is how you spend it. We're not going to have, or we're going to have limits as to how much people can put in. Because right now for corporations there's an unknown limit that's there based on the number of corporations that you use to put money in. So all of that is there. Campaign finance reform would bring all of that into some type of laid out platform where there'll be a limit as to the amount of money that the candidates can need. And they need to campaign based on the money that they have in place, that everyone would be pretty much the same across the board with the regards to the amount of money. The focus there being that the voters then would be able to simply focus on the issues of the candidates and the stance of the candidate, rather than what they're being overwhelmed with because of the money that candidates have to be able to push their money, push their ideas, their concepts, their candidacies, their campaigns out to the voters.
Everybody, of course, you can hear Attorney Barbara Arwine and Attorney Daryl Jones on WOL every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Hope you will tune into the show. And when you get over there, please thumbs up, like, because we have to get our algorithms together in order to combat, I think, the right-wing tilt of this social media space. I mean, they're favored. If you want to talk peace, Norman Solomon was put on ice on Facebook, Ariel and Daryl Jones, for 2 weeks. Now, for those of you who haven't really been in this progressive space, Norman Solomon is an icon. There is no more. He and Jeff Cohen are two of the most respected voices in the progressive space, not just politics. They have been on the front lines of the fight for peace and justice for everybody for decades. I mean, Ariel, we were campaigning with Reverend, and we didn't even know they were doing this. They had gone and they confronted the New York Times in a editorial board meeting. You're lying on Reverend Jackson. And they had this whole list of all of the misrepresentations and mischaracterizations of the campaign, with the Salzburgers. They were like, no. And we're tracking you. That's the kind of work that they do. And so fairness and accuracy in reporting, which they birthed, please support them as well. Roots Action. They birthed that as well. Please support them. Please support Rainbow Push, because we're people who fight for you. Join the Fellowship of Reconciliation, because this is about pulling us all together. Look, everybody has a different view of how you approach God, but that's where we're going. We're just trying to get to God. Everybody got their own tradition, and I borrow from everybody, Ariel, because it might help me. I mean, I'm so glad I've had a father who was a minister who took us not only to every kind of church. When he had to speak at a synagogue, we went. When you had to go to a mosque, you went. And on and on. I mean, you got to chance. And he would explain the importance of this tradition, and and look at it, understand it, examine it. And when you get to college, comparative religious studies, take a class so you can appreciate all of these different traditions, because we need them. I mean, because my father's going to listen, is going to read. He was always throwing a book at me by Rabbi Heschel. But, I mean, seriously. I mean, because we learn from each other and we help each other to grow. I mean, how dangerous is it, Ariel, for us? Hey, Max Myrick from DC, sending you so much love. These people, it seems like they function under the radar and in the margins. Anytime you're supporting neo-Nazis and the nationalists who endanger our lives, quite frankly, and they're not called out, Ariel. That, to me, that's very, very. I think that's dangerous. I think we need to expose these different organizations and the people who are in them. What do you say?
Absolutely. Yeah, these we have all kinds of forces working to push our issues, and very much behind the scenes. And that's some of the same issue that we're looking at with dark money. And we have the fueling of elections where we don't even see where that money is coming from. And we have groups like APAC, and they're campaigning around. They're saying this person, it doesn't have your back locally, and this money isn't coming locally at all. And I think this is a real call for us actually to get back to local politics. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean politics funded locally and for the local constituency. And so we can look at, what is happening in our individual communities, what is happening with our schools, what is happening with our local economy, and not to be distracted by, let's just say it, kind of shiny objects.
But we are distracted by them, and I'm just wondering, with an open primary, I'm hoping that Ilhan Omar can get through, but I think the quiet part is being said out loud, quite frankly, because this has been going on for a long time, but now we're seeing it. My question is, in these last 5 or 6 minutes we have here, Ariel, what do we do about it? I mean, because I'm hearing Dr. Zogby's voice on these countless Zoom calls we had while we're trying to organize a Mideast summit. He said, it was like he and Reverend they're like brothers. They're coming from the same playbook. He was like, while we're doing this, God, he said, you don't want to lose Cori Bush. He calls her by name. I mean, Jamal Bowman. And I don't think you've lost to them, because I don't know what's happening in their communities, Ariel, because I think that as these challenges build up, I think there's going to be a fair amount of anger out here. I mean, because I lived in New York, so I'm talking to my friends who are there, and just, like, well, what do you see and what are you hearing? And you talk to, you look at the Amsterdam news and you ask them, what's going on? And a lot of things are building up right now. So what do we do? I mean, what's the path forward, Ariel?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're
gathering Chicago
for the DNC. We're going to be having some important conversations, just to plug Rainbow Push. So we're going to be there. Santita, if you want to talk about some of the early days. But from the 19th through the 21st, there's a convening at the Rainbow Push headquarters of from the Arab American Institute, the Rainbow Push Coalition, Progressive Democrats of America. And we're going to be talking about all of these issues. We're going to be talking about the dangerous role of dark money in politics. And on that, you're talking about that is going to be Andy Levan, who has also been pushed out of Congress despite being not just Jewish, but a Jewish legacy in Congress, but pushed out by AIPAC because of his not being pro-Israel enough. Let's just say enough.
Because he has been, but he's taken principled stances. It's just like any person who's in a family. You say, wait a minute, I don't agree with this. And he's from an iconic family who stood 10 toes down for Israel, but they've also done that for everybody who's vulnerable, to be fair. So losing him in Congress, that was a big deal.
It was.
It is a big deal. And that's what concerns me. I'm not hopeless right now, everybody. I'm hopeful because, like I said, Ariel Gold Fellowship of Reconciliation, and you're right, starting Thursday, we're all going to be at Rainbow Push. And, and many of us will be going between Rainbow Push and the DNC. But Push is where you can come, where you can decompress and talk. We will all be there. And that's what we'll be streaming. We'll be streaming and talking. And of course, the Transformative Justice Coalition will be there. And what's the path forward, Daryl Jones? I mean, is it to raise turnout? Do we need to campaign more aggressively for campaign finance reform? I mean, what?
Yeah. I think a large part of it is campaigning more aggressively for campaign finance reform. And let's remember, you know, we also need to brush up on Citizens United because that's what really opened up the floodgates of all of this by removing those restrictions for corporations and how much money they can give in these elections. But sometimes we have to be even more grassroots than that.
Mm.
We need to be certain, as Reverend would say, that you're registered to be on the train that's coming in terms to make the change that you're looking for, and that is you need to go to vote.org to be certain that you're registered to vote. You haven't been removed from the rolls. Then from there, we've got to be able to push on the ground, very basic issues, let folks know that their vote really does matter. That it's important that they exercise that right to vote because that's going to determine state representatives who are going to determine who's going to be members of Congress, what the lines are, and power of your vote. So it all really does come down to to the practical issues of being able to vote. I think that the path forward begins with that push to be certain that everyone has an unfettered right and access to being able to vote and getting your vote counted. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about at this Rainbow Push convention that you need to hear is about all the ways they're trying to discount your vote. All the things you need to do to protect that right to vote. What they're doing in Missouri, what they're doing, in Arizona, and all of these other areas that are doing some of the battleground states, some of the aspects that are taken to try to challenge your right to vote. One of the things that we'll be discussing is the armory, the sword that you need to bring, the knowledge you need to have to be certain that you're protecting that right to vote. So the path forward involves protecting your right to vote. The path forward involves being certain not just that your vote is cast, that you have unfettered access, but after you're voted, there's even a movement now to try to have the community election boards, the elective committees that will be able to then make determinations post-vote after you've already voted. So all of these are things we have to be ready with, knowledgeable of, and be able to take the steps to be certain that our votes are cast. Because if America votes, once America votes, democracy wins. But we got to be certain that America has the access to the ballot and that unfettered access to the ballot, and we keep a watchful eye to see what happens after our votes are cast and how they're counted.
Well, Reverend Jesse Jackson did say slave masters never retire. they, just, they just keep on going. But he also said you can't ride to freedom in Pharaoh's chariot. And so it's not just about funding the organizations with which you want to work and that advocate for you. It really is about changing your mindset. The fact is, Ariel Gold made the point, the reason money is being poured into these campaigns to get these people out is because we are winning every day. We are winning. We are winning. I want you to know we are winning. We're winning, Carol Saskin, Dave Dowling, Europe and Canada, but we're all in the same fight. We're winning every day. So please get to the Rainbow Push Convention because you'll see Ariel Gold there in the flesh. And yes, she's as beautiful in person, inside and out, as she is on your screen. And Daryl Jones is as handsome as he is on the screen. And they're brilliant. And we need to see each other, everybody. That was one of the things we saw in COVID, being isolated from each other and even just doing Zoom calls. Well, it's changed the character of the show because we see each other. But can you imagine if we're able to hug one another and talk to one another? Let's do that. We really need to do that because we've got a lot of work to do. And of course, we're looking at the top of the ticket. That's important. But going down ballot, saving the U.S. House of Representatives, saving your state legislatures, saving the governorships, saving the county seats, saving the localities. We really do have a choice, everybody. Who's going to vote for health care for all? Who's going to save the children and the adults and the old people that we all become? Who's going to do that? Well, I think the Republicans are playing with you. I think the Democrats have a real plan, but we have to push them because there are forces outside, as we can see from the donors who forced Biden out. They hold a lot of sway. They can even go past your vote. So there's a lot of changing. And there's a lot of changing we've got to do, a lot of changes we've got to institute, but we can do that. That's the good news. We can do that. So let's get busy, everybody. Didn't Arsenio Hall used to say that? Yes. Let's get busy. Let's get busy. Everybody, let's go to the second hour and let's talk about how important it is to vote down ballot. You might not think you have a lot on the line, but you really, really do. If you want to keep Ilhan Omar in Congress, that starts in your state house. She could be drawn out of her district by the state house. That doesn't happen in Washington. That happens at home, everybody. Let's talk about that on the Santita Jackson Show. Everybody get on over to the next side. And please like and share, like and share, like and share, like and share. Like and share, like and share, like and share. Love you. Love you, Ariel Gold. Daryl Jones. See you in a few. I know, Ariel. I know you let me go. That's all right. Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio, Minneapolis, St. Paul.